Contaminated, unsafe, do not live here without major remediation. Those are not words from a dramatic television promo, folks. Those are the actual warnings from professional inspectors who examined Kody and Robyn Brown's Flagstaff home, and the implications for this already struggling family are absolutely catastrophic. The property they have been desperately trying to sell, the home that was supposed to represent their fresh start after the Brown family empire imploded, has been officially labeled a health hazard. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who spent over a decade on national television positioning himself as the ultimate family patriarch, the provider, the leader, cannot even sell a safe house. Sources close to the situation are painting a picture of complete desperation inside the Brown household right now. One insider put it bluntly, they thought listing the house would solve their problems, but instead it has exposed just how badly things have deteriorated, and they are absolutely right. What was supposed to be a straightforward real estate transaction has transformed into a nightmare that reveals years of neglect, denial, and the kind of corner cutting that has defined Kody Brown's approach to literally everything in his life. The contamination is not some minor issue that a weekend of cleaning could resolve. We are talking about problems so severe that potential buyers have been explicitly warned against moving in without extensive professional-level remediation that could cost tens of thousands of dollars. This is the kind of revelation that does not just tank a home sale, it exposes an entire lifestyle built on appearances over substance. For years, viewers watched Kody parade around talking about providing for his family, about building a legacy, about being the head of this sprawling plural family dynasty. Now we are seeing what that legacy actually looks like, and it is literally toxic. The timing of this disaster could not be worse for the Browns. With 3 wives having walked away, TLC contract renewals uncertain at best, and their financial situation reportedly more precarious than ever before, this house was supposed to be their lifeline. Instead, it has become an anchor dragging them deeper into chaos. Potential buyers who toured the property walked away not with dreams of their new home, but with warnings ringing in their ears about health risks and mandatory remediation. Try selling that at asking price. What makes this particularly devastating is the irony dripping from every corner of this situation. Robyn Brown, the wife Kody chose over everyone else, the woman whose comfort and security he prioritized while his other marriages burned to the ground, has been living in a home that was apparently deteriorating around her the entire time. The favoritism, the special treatment, the way Kody moved heaven and earth to keep Robyn happy while Janelle lived in an RV and Christine raised children practically alone. And this is what it amounted to: a contaminated house that professionals are calling unsafe for human habitation. But the specific nature of what inspectors discovered inside that home will absolutely shock anyone who has followed this family's journey, and it reveals a pattern of neglect that goes back years. The Browns' desperate attempt to sell this property did not emerge from nowhere. It is the culmination of years of financial mismanagement, fractured relationships, and a lifestyle that was always more smoke and mirrors than substance. To understand why Kody and Robyn find themselves in this position, you have to understand just how badly the foundation beneath them has crumbled since the family left Las Vegas in that chaotic, controversial move to Flagstaff, Arizona. Remember when Kody announced the move? He framed it as a fresh start, a spiritual calling, an opportunity for the family to finally build something together on that massive piece of property called Coyote Pass. Sources say the reality was far messier. The family was reportedly fleeing financial pressures in Las Vegas, and Kody's grand vision involved uprooting 4 wives and 18 children with minimal planning and maximum chaos. One former associate described it as watching someone set their house on fire and call it a renovation. That assessment becomes more accurate with every passing month. The Flagstaff property that is now causing so much trouble was purchased during that turbulent period, and the decision-making process apparently matched the dysfunction of everything else happening in the Brown family at the time. Kody positioned himself as the savvy patriarch who would handle the real estate transactions, who understood property values, who would provide safe homes for his wives while the Coyote Pass dream took shape. Fast forward to today, and 3 of those wives have fled. Coyote Pass remains an undeveloped money pit, and the home Kody shares with Robyn has been declared contaminated by professionals. The pressure mounting on Kody and Robyn right now is unlike anything they have faced in their decades of public life. When Mary, Janelle, and Christine were still in the picture, the family had multiple income streams, multiple TLC storylines, and at least the appearance of a functioning plural family unit. Now it is just Kody and Robyn against a tsunami of financial reality. Sources say their monthly expenses have not adjusted to match their dramatically reduced circumstances. One insider claimed they are still living like they have 4 wives' worth of income coming in. But mathematically, that makes absolutely no sense anymore. The irony here is staggering, and it deserves deserves to be stated plainly. Kody Brown spent years on television talking about responsibility, about leadership, about being the head of a family. He lectured his wives about finances. He made decisions that affected everyone while refusing to accept input from anyone. And now, when it matters most, when his family has fractured and his income has plummeted, and his one remaining wife is stuck with him in a contaminated house, his leadership has produced exactly what critics always predicted it would: failure on a spectacular public scale. What makes the contamination discovery particularly gutting for longtime viewers is understanding Robyn's role in this household. This is a woman who built her entire identity around being the perfect homemaker, the nester, the wife who created beautiful spaces for her family. She wanted the nice things, she wanted the comfortable home, she wanted Kody to choose her over everyone else, and he did. But wanting something and actually maintaining it are two very different things, and the gap between Robyn's aspirations and reality has never been more apparent than it is right now. But exactly what the inspectors found inside that house reveals a level of neglect that goes beyond simple oversight, and the details are genuinely disturbing. When the professional inspectors finally got access to Kody and Robyn's Flagstaff property, what they discovered sent shockwaves through the real estate community handling the listing. We are not talking about a few scuff marks on the walls or carpet that needs replacing. Sources say the contamination issues include significant mold problems, potential structural concerns related to water damage, and environmental hazards that have likely been festering for years while the Browns lived there, seemingly oblivious to the danger surrounding them. Mold contamination in a home is not a minor inconvenience, folks. It is a serious health hazard that can cause respiratory problems, allergic reactions, and long-term health complications for anyone living in the affected space. One environmental expert not connected to the Browns but familiar with these types of cases explained that mold infestations of this severity typically develop over extended periods. You do not wake up one morning with contamination levels this serious. It builds over years of water intrusion, inadequate ventilation, and deferred maintenance that allows spores to colonize and spread throughout the structure. Let that sink in for a moment. While Kody and Robyn were living in this home, while she was nesting and he was prioritizing her comfort over every other relationship in his life, they were apparently breathing in contaminated air. The house that represented Kody's devotion to his favorite wife, the property that other family members resented because of the resources poured into it, was slowly becoming toxic around them. You cannot make this stuff up. Sources familiar with the inspection report say potential buyers were explicitly told that remediation would need to address not just surface-level mold, but likely extensive damage behind walls, underflooring, and potentially in the HVAC system that circulates air throughout the entire home. One inspector allegedly warned that prospective purchasers should absolutely not plan to live here without comprehensive remediation that could take months and cost a significant portion of the home's asking price. That is the kind of warning that does not just slow down a sale, it effectively kills it for anyone who does their due diligence. The connection to Robyn's personality and priorities makes this even more damning. For years, she positioned herself as the wife who cared about her home, who wanted nice things, who deserved the comfortable lifestyle Kody was so eager to provide her. But maintaining a home requires more than wanting it to be nice. It requires attention to maintenance issues, addressing water problems before they become catastrophic, and actually taking care of the property rather than just decorating it. According to insiders, this disconnect between Robyn's aesthetic aspirations and her actual homemaking capabilities has been apparent to people close to the family for years. One source who visited the home before the contamination was officially discovered described noticing musty smells and what appeared to be water stains that no one seemed concerned about. They said it was like everyone was pretending nothing was wrong while the problems got worse and worse. And that pretending, that denial, that refusal to acknowledge reality until it becomes absolutely unavoidable is perhaps the most defining characteristic of Kody Brown's approach to life. But when Kody finally had to acknowledge that something was seriously wrong with the property, his approach to fixing it reveals everything you need to know about why this family has fallen apart, and his attempted repairs have actually made the situation significantly worse. When faced with professional-level contamination that required expert remediation, Kody Brown did exactly what Kody Brown always does. He decided he knew better than the professionals, rolled up his sleeves, and attempted to fix the problem himself. Sources say the results have been predictably disastrous, transforming what was already a serious situation into something approaching a full-blown catastrophe, with legal implications that could haunt the Browns for years. The estimated cost for proper mold remediation in a home of this size and severity typically runs between $15,000 and $40,000 depending on the extent of the contamination and the specific areas affected. That is a significant amount of money, especially for a family reportedly struggling with reduced income and mounting expenses. But here is the thing about professional remediation. It actually works. The technicians understand how to contain contaminated areas, how to properly remove affected materials, how to treat underlying causes, and how to verify that the problem has actually been resolved before declaring the job complete. What did Kody allegedly do instead? Sources describe a series of DIY attempts involving over-the-counter mold treatments, surface cleaning that addressed visible problems while ignoring the contamination lurking behind walls, and what one insider called a truly stunning display of denial about the scope of what he was dealing with. The total amount Kody reportedly spent on his amateur remediation efforts is estimated at somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000, a fraction of what proper treatment would have cost, and every penny of it apparently wasted. Let us be brutally honest here. This pattern should surprise absolutely no one who has watched Sister Wives over the years. Kody has always believed he knows better than the experts. He rejected marriage counseling advice, he ignored financial guidance, he dismissed the concerns of his wives when they tried to tell him things were falling apart. The man has never met a professional opinion he could not override with his own inflated sense of competence. And now that approach has left him with a contaminated home that is arguably in worse condition than before he started trying to fix it. One source close to the situation described the failed repair attempts in devastating terms. He treated a serious contamination issue like it was a weekend project, and now he has potentially spread spores to areas that were not previously affected while doing nothing to address the underlying moisture problems that caused the infestation in the first place. This is not just incompetence, it is the kind of willful ignorance that endangers everyone involved. The legal implications of Kody's botched remediation efforts are particularly concerning for the Browns going forward. Real estate law in most states requires sellers to disclose known defects and contamination issues to potential buyers. By attempting to address the mold himself without professional documentation, without proper verification that the problem was resolved, and without the certifications that would protect him legally, Kody may have created a liability nightmare. If he sells the house and the new owners discover contamination that was inadequately addressed, the Browns could face lawsuits that would make their current financial problems look minor by comparison. But understanding why Kody chose the cheap route over the proper remediation requires examining just how desperate the Browns' financial situation has actually become, and the numbers are even more alarming than most viewers realize. The financial reality facing Kody and Robyn Brown right now is nothing short of dire, and understanding the scope of their predicament explains why Kody would even consider attempting DIY remediation on a contamination issue this serious. When you examine the numbers, when you look at what sources say about their income versus their expenses, the picture that emerges is of a family in genuine financial crisis with very few options remaining. Let us start with the obvious. Sister Wives as a television property is a shadow of what it once was. The show that once featured a sprawling plural family with 4 wives, 18 children, and endless storylines now centers on a bitter divorced patriarch and his one remaining spouse, sitting in a house they cannot sell. Sources say TLC contract negotiations have been increasingly difficult, with the network understandably questioning whether audiences will continue tuning in to watch two people who are not particularly likable navigate the wreckage of their former life. The days of the entire family commanding significant per-episode fees are over. Meanwhile, the Coyote Pass land that was supposed to be the family's legacy sits undeveloped, hemorrhaging money in property taxes while generating absolutely zero income. The Browns purchased that property for approximately $820,000 with dreams of building homes for each wife and creating a family compound. That was years ago. The land remains empty. The wives who were supposed to live there have left, and every year the Browns owe taxes on a massive piece of Arizona real estate that produces nothing but headaches and regrets. One financial source who has analyzed the Browns situation based on public records and industry knowledge estimated that Kody and Robyn's monthly expenses likely exceed $20,000 when you factor in their mortgage, insurance, property taxes on Coyote Pass, lifestyle costs, and Robyn's children who still live at home. Compare that to their apparently dwindling income streams, and you begin to understand why selling the Flagstaff house became not just desirable, but absolutely necessary for their survival. The contrast with Christine Brown's post-divorce trajectory makes this even more painful to examine. Christine has launched a successful cooking show. She is engaged to a man who by all accounts adores her. Her social media presence has flourished. She has rebuilt her life in a way that seems genuinely happy and healthy, and she did it all after walking away from Kody with apparently minimal financial settlement. The woman Kody dismissed, the wife he allegedly described as not being attracted to, has become the family success story while he struggles to sell a contaminated house. Sources say insiders have noticed this contrast, and it infuriates Kody. One person close to the situation claimed he cannot stand watching Christine Christine thrive while he struggles. He spent years treating her like she was the problem in their marriage, and now she is out there proving that maybe he was the problem all along. That assessment seems increasingly difficult to argue with as the evidence mounts. But as the financial pressure has intensified and the house sale has stalled, the blame game inside the Brown household has reportedly reached fever pitch, and Kody is pointing fingers at someone who never expected to be in his crosshairs. The tension inside the Brown household has apparently reached a breaking point, and sources say Kody has begun doing something that shocks even people who know him well. He is blaming Robyn, the wife he chose over everyone else, the woman whose comfort and happiness he prioritized above 3 other marriages and relationships with multiple children, is now reportedly the target of his frustration as the contamination disaster unfolds. According to insiders, Kody has been telling people that the home's condition is Robyn's fault for not maintaining it properly. He allegedly claims that as the person who was home most often, who managed the household, who had primary responsibility for noticing and addressing maintenance issues, Robyn should have caught the water problems before they became a full-blown mold infestation. One source paraphrased Kody's position this way: he says he was out working, trying to keep the family afloat financially, and she was supposed to be handling the home. Now the home is worthless and somehow that is his fault. Let that sink in for a moment. The man who made every major decision for this family, who controlled the finances, who chose where they would live and how resources would be allocated, is now blaming his wife for not managing a home that was apparently already problematic when they moved in. The audacity is absolutely staggering, but it is also completely consistent with everything we have seen from Kody Brown over the years. Robyn's alleged response has been equally telling. Sources say she has pushed back against Kody's blame shifting, pointing out that he never provided adequate resources for home maintenance, that requests for repairs were often delayed or denied because of budget constraints, and that she cannot be held responsible for structural issues that predated their occupancy. One insider claimed Robyn has been telling friends that Kody wants someone to blame for every problem, and for years it was always the other wives. Now that they are gone, she is the only target left. This pattern of deflection has been documented extensively by people who have studied the Brown family dynamics over the years. Suki, the commentator who has provided some of the most insightful analysis of sister wives, has spoken about how difficult it is to pin Kody down on any form of accountability. He always has an explanation, always has someone else to blame, always has a reason why his failures are actually other people's faults. The contaminated house is just the latest example of a lifetime pattern that has cost him 3 marriages and countless relationships with his own children. The historical precedent here is damning. Kody blamed Mary for the catfishing scandal that he arguably drove her toward through years of neglect. He blamed Janelle for being too independent and not supporting him properly. He blamed Christine for not trying hard enough to save a marriage he had clearly checked out of years earlier. Now he is blaming Robyn for a contaminated house, and one has to wonder whether Robyn finally understands what her sister wives experienced for all those years. But while Kody and Robyn reportedly argue about responsibility for their crumbling circumstances, the 3 women who escaped this dysfunction have been watching from a distance with reactions that range from vindication to barely concealed satisfaction. The ex-wives of Kody Brown have front row seats to his current disaster, and sources say their reactions range from quiet vindication to something approaching glee as they watch the man who dismissed them struggle with the consequences of his choices. Janelle, Christine, and Mary may have taken different paths out of their marriages to Kody, but they reportedly share a common perspective on his contaminated house debacle. Janelle's response has been particularly pointed, according to people who have spoken with her. Remember, this is the woman who lived in an RV on the Coyote Pass property while Kody and Robyn enjoyed their comfortable Flagstaff home. She reportedly camped through Arizona winters, dealt with limited utilities and cramped quarters, all while Kody prioritized his life with Robyn. For years, Janelle watched resources flow toward the favorite wife while she made do with significantly less. Now that favorite wife is stuck in a house that inspectors have called unsafe, and sources say Janelle views this as poetic justice. One person close to Janelle said she does not wish them harm, but she also cannot help noticing the irony. She lived in an RV while Robyn got the nice house. Now it turns out the nice house was contaminated the whole time. You cannot script that kind of karma. And indeed you cannot. The universe occasionally delivers consequences that feel almost too perfectly suited to the circumstances that created them. Christine's perspective is reportedly even more settled and secure. Having rebuilt her life completely since leaving Kody, having found new love and new career success, Christine apparently views her ex-husband's struggles as confirmation that she made the right decision at the right time. Sources say she occasionally comments privately about how grateful she is to have escaped before the financial implosion became this severe. One friend of Christine's claimed she said something along the lines of, "Every day I wake up grateful I am not dealing with that chaos anymore." Murray's position is more complicated, as it has always been. Her departure from the Brown family was the most recent and in some ways the most painful, given that she and Kody were technically still legally married when their relationship officially ended. Sources say Murray is still processing her feelings about the family she was part of for over 3 decades, but even she apparently cannot help observing that things have deteriorated dramatically since she left. One person familiar with Murray's thinking suggested she feels validated in some ways, but also sad about what the Brown family has become. Social media detectives have noticed subtle posts from all 3 ex-wives that seem to reference Kody's current troubles without naming him directly. Inspirational quotes about karma, posts about new beginnings and leaving toxic situations behind, images of thriving and moving forward. The women who spent years being criticized, dismissed, and blamed for problems in their marriages are now living their best lives, while their former husband struggles to sell a house that professionals have declared unsafe. But perhaps the most devastating commentary on Kody's current situation is coming from an unexpected source, and the children he once claimed to lead have very strong opinions about their father's collapse. The Brown children have witnessed their family's public implosion from a unique vantage point, and their responses to Kody's current struggles reveal just how thoroughly he has damaged his relationships with the people he was supposed to protect and guide. From Gabe and the late Garrison's well-documented estrangement to Paydon's social media commentary, the next generation of Browns has been notably unsympathetic to their father's contaminated house crisis. Gabe's estrangement from Kody has been one of the most painful storylines in recent Sister Wives history. The two men had a confrontation on camera that revealed years of built-up resentment over Kody's treatment of Janelle and his priorities during the pandemic years. Sources say Gabe views his father's current financial struggles as the natural consequence of decades of poor decisions and misplaced priorities. One person who has spoken with Gabe recently said he has essentially written Kody off at this point. He is not celebrating his father's problems, but he is also not surprised by them. This is exactly what happens when you treat people the way Kody treated everyone. The tragedy of Garrison's death earlier this year adds another layer of heartbreak to this family's story. Whatever reconciliation might have been possible between Garrison and Kody ended with that loss, and sources say the remaining Brown children are acutely aware that their father's relationship with Garrison was damaged by the same patterns of behavior that have now left him in financial and personal ruin. The contaminated house becomes a symbol of everything Kody got wrong, everything he prioritized incorrectly, everything he sacrificed for a lifestyle that is now literally crumbling around him. Robyn's children find themselves in an impossibly difficult position as their parents' stress reportedly intensifies daily. These are young people who watch their mother become the focus of family resentment, who heard the criticism from siblings and viewers alike, and who are now trapped in a home that professionals say is unsafe, while their parents allegedly argue about whose fault it all is. Sources say the atmosphere in the Brown household has become increasingly tense, with Robyn's children caught between loyalty to their mother and the undeniable reality that their living situation has become untenable. Paydon, Christine's son, who has been notably outspoken about family dynamics since his mother's departure, has used social media to comment on his father's failures in ways that are both pointed and painful. While he typically avoids directly attacking Kody, his posts about accountability, about consequences, and about the importance of treating people well carry obvious subtext that viewers have not missed. One follower noted that Paydon does not have to name his father specifically because everyone knows exactly what he is talking about. The criticism is effective precisely because it is not explicit. The emotional weight of watching a parent's empire collapse publicly cannot be overstated. These are children and young adults who grew up on camera, whose family dysfunction was broadcast for entertainment, and who are now seeing the ultimate consequences of leadership failures they witnessed firsthand for years. Whatever complicated feelings they may have about their father, the contaminated house situation apparently confirms what many of them suspected all along. But as devastating as the family reactions have been, professional analysis of the Browns' real estate situation suggests their problems may be even worse than the public currently understands. Real estate professionals who have examined the Browns' situation are painting a picture that is even more dire than what has been publicly reported, and their analysis suggests that Kody and Robyn may be facing impossible choices in the months ahead. The contaminated house is not just a temporary setback. It may be an insurmountable obstacle that forces decisions they never imagined having to make. One real estate expert familiar with the Arizona market explained the fundamental problem facing the Browns. A home with documented contamination issues and failed remediation attempts becomes what the industry calls stigmatized property. Even if Kody were to invest in proper professional remediation now, the history of the contamination and his amateur repair attempts would need to be disclosed to potential buyers. That disclosure alone could reduce offers by 20 to 30% below what similar unstained properties would command. For a family already in financial distress, that kind of reduction could be catastrophic. The legal implications extend beyond disclosure requirements. Sources say real estate attorneys have warned that Kody's DIY remediation efforts, combined with his apparent attempts to sell the property, could expose him to significant liability if he sells to someone who later discovers ongoing contamination that was inadequately addressed. The Browns could face lawsuits alleging fraud or failure to properly disclose known defects. One legal source explained that courts are increasingly unsympathetic to sellers who knew about problems and either tried to hide them or incompetently attempted to fix them without professional verification. The option of simply lowering the price until someone bites is complicated by whatever mortgage the Browns currently owe on the property. If they are underwater, meaning they owe more than the contaminated house can realistically sell for, they face the nightmare scenario of needing to bring money to closing rather than receiving proceeds from the sale. For a family with no apparent financial reserves, that situation would be essentially impossible to navigate without drastic measures. Speculation about the Browns' next moves has centered on a few possibilities, none of them good. Bankruptcy would provide some protection from creditors, but would devastate their credit and potentially complicate any future real estate transactions. Significant downsizing would require finding rental housing that could accommodate their family size while presumably still paying property taxes on the worthless Coyote Pass land. Some sources have even suggested that Kody might need to approach his ex-wives for financial assistance, a humiliation that seems almost impossible to imagine given his personality and their relationships. The Coyote Pass land that was supposed to be the family legacy becomes their only remaining significant asset, but it too is problematic. Undeveloped land in that area has been notoriously difficult to sell, and the property carries all the emotional baggage of failed family dreams and broken promises. One real estate professional observed that holding on to Coyote Pass at this point makes no sense financially, but selling it would mean admitting that the entire Flagstaff move was a mistake. And that admission may be too much for Kody's ego to handle. But as the options narrow and the pressure intensifies, this collapse may ultimately force a decision that Kody Brown never in his wildest imagination thought he would have to confront. The contaminated house, the failed repairs, the mounting financial pressure, the fractured family relationships. All of it converges on a fundamental question that Kody Brown has apparently never seriously considered in his entire adult life. What happens when there is nowhere left to run, no one left to blame, and no option remaining except to face the consequences of his own choices? For over a decade, Sister Wives viewers watched Kody position himself as the patriarch who knew best, the leader whose decisions should not be questioned, the provider whose judgment was superior to the women he married. He moved the family from state to state when problems emerged. He blamed his wives when relationships soured. He prioritized his own comfort while expecting everyone else to sacrifice for the family's supposed collective good. And through it all, TLC cameras captured the dysfunction, the favoritism, the gaslighting, and the gradual erosion of a family that might have worked if its head had possessed even a fraction of the humility and self-awareness that genuine leadership requires. Now, the cameras are still rolling, but the story has fundamentally changed. This is not a tale of a quirky plural family navigating unusual relationship dynamics. This is the chronicle of a collapse, narrated in real time, with a contaminated house serving as the perfect metaphor for everything Kody Brown built over his adult life. The foundation was always rotting. The problems were always spreading behind the walls. And eventually, inevitably, the contamination became impossible to ignore or spin away. The poetic justice of this situation deserves to be stated plainly. Kody chose Robyn over everyone else. He chose her comfort over Mary's desperate need for connection. He chose her desires over Janelle's practical concerns. He chose her preferences over Christine's emotional well-being. He made that choice openly, repeatedly, and without apparent remorse. And he expected everyone to simply accept it because he was the patriarch and his decisions were not up for debate. Now he is stuck with that choice, quite literally, in a house that professionals say is unsafe for human habitation. The cultural significance of this moment extends beyond one family's dysfunction. Viewers have followed the Browns for years, some out of genuine interest in plural family dynamics, others out of fascination with the slow-motion train wreck that sister wives gradually became. We watched the warning signs emerge. We watched the wives try to communicate their concerns. We watched Kody dismiss and deflect and blame until there was no one left to dismiss except the woman he chose over all others. And now we are witnessing something that feels uncomfortably like accountability, served up by the universe in the form of mold spores and inspection reports and a real estate market that does not care about your ego or your excuses. Can Kody rebuild from this? Can his marriage to Robyn survive financial ruin and mutual blame and the stress of living in a contaminated house with no clear path forward? These questions linger as the Browns face their most challenging chapter yet, with no other wives to share the burden, no sprawling family to provide support, and no apparent exit strategy from a crisis of their own making. Do you think Kody and Robyn's relationship can survive this financial and personal disaster? Will the contaminated house finally force them to confront realities they have spent years avoiding? Drop your predictions in the comments below, because this story is far from over and the next chapter may be the most explosive yet.